Okay, we've just been talking about this rejection of the primitive signifier, this rejection of what Lacan calls Bejahung on page 82 and earlier on in the text here. Let's blast forward to page 149. This is where we see this theme pop up again. And anytime we see a theme recurring in a Lacanian text, we pay attention to it. Page 149, more or less at the top of the page, which begins, "Since this level leaves you somewhat confused, I will put things to you dogmatically, which I detest doing. You know my style is dialectical." So here again is one of those moments where Lacan says, I can tell that everybody here is confused, so let me put things dogmatically, categorically. Let me put things in a way that is very clear. Here we go. Before a child can learn to articulate language, in other words, to use words, to speak, we have to assume that signifiers, which are already of the symbolic order, have appeared. Signifiers here you can just think of as words, or anything that carries meaning, that signals meaning. Think about it as a signal. That might be even better. Signifiers, which already are of the symbolic order, have appeared. Before the kid starts speaking, they are in a world of words. Before the kid starts using words, they are surrounded by them. They hear the primary caregiver using words, saying things, and they can visually and auditorily see and hear other people responding. They don't know what the words mean, but they recognize that there's some order of significance happening here. Now, let's back up a second. We're trying to get at what Lacan refers to as Bejahung. Notice how he puts it here. Before a child can learn to articulate language, before this can occur, we have to assume or presuppose that signifiers are already of the symbolic order, have appeared. When I speak of a primitive appearance of the signifier, Bejahung, this is something that already implies language. Language has to be there, in place, in order for the parents to start using the words that are occurring before the child starts to use those words. You see what I mean? So when the child starts to speak, we assume that they learn to speak by hearing others speak, which happened presumably before they started to speak, of course. Logically, that makes sense. And in order for the adults to be able to speak in a way that could teach the child how to speak eventually, we have to presuppose something else, namely the existence of a language. So here it is. Because the child can speak, we assume that it has been in a world where they have heard others speak first. And because there's a world presupposed where others are speaking in order to teach the child how to speak, we also have to presume that these others live in a world that has a language prior to their arrival in existence. Languages evolve, but none have ever been invented to coincide with the birth of a single person. Languages are there before the speakers arrive. That's this primitive appearance of the signifier. This is something that already implies language. So here it is one more time. If a little kid can speak, it's because they heard others doing that before they started speaking. And if others could speak in ways that would instruct the child in their own language use, we have to presume that they were speaking a language, that a language preceded them. Not necessarily temporally, although that makes sense. We're just thinking logically here. By the sheer fact of a child speaking, we can presuppose these other two elements, namely that they were in a world where others spoke and that the others were using a language that pre-existed them. This is what he means by something that already implies language. All this does is link up with the emergence of this being that is nowhere, the day. This is just a weird example he keeps using. The day, qua day, is not a phenomenon. The day, qua day, implies symbolic connotation, the fundamental alternation of the vocal connoting presence and absence on which Freud hinges his whole notion of beyond the pleasure principle. Now that's kind of a weird ending for this paragraph, but I want to use this opportunity to just get us right back into that introduction of Bejahung. It's still with us here on page 149.